Greetings all, and welcome back to Luca Sprues. In today's video, we're going to have a little look at the Eduard 1/72nd scale Mig-15 Profipack edition. So the Mig-15 is obviously one of the most famous of the Soviet aircraft and one of the most effective early jets. So as you can see on the box, they're depicting this one in the famous North Korean Air Force scheme, shooting down the American equivalent, the F-86 Sabre. So the Mig-15 obviously came about after World War II, and it's kind of the evolution of some of the early Soviet jet programs. After they got a hold of some British engines that were for commercial use only, they put them into the Mig-15 airframe and found it was a very effective fighter jet. The wings have obviously been swept back, and that's based off of a lot of the German research they nicked off the Nazis after World War II. So a very rich history with this aircraft, and it's very heavily involved in all of the things that happened after World War II and into the Cold War. And it's obviously got a lot of basic Soviet features, and I've done a little bit of work on a Mig-15, or the Soviet two-seat version, out at the Queensland Air Museum, so I'm a little bit familiar with how this aircraft is. And we'll have a little look at how Eduard has done this one, but I have pretty high expectations for this, as Eduard tend to do some really professional, more high-end stuff, and being the professional edition, it'll feature some of the extra goodies. So without further ado, let's have a little look at what's inside. So we've already had a little look at the front of the box, so I'll move on from there. We'll start with the side here, which shows all of the schemes that are included in this kit. So you've got quite a large variety of air forces, reflecting obviously the Mig-15's quite varied service history. I'll move that a little bit better so you can see it more clearly. But we've got the Czech Republic Air Force back then. This one is the Slovak, so Hungarian. And this one is from the Soviet Union, but it's been painted over. There's some North Korean markings underneath. We've got a North Korean scheme, which is the one featured on the box, and an Egyptian Air Force scheme. So showing a little bit of the Mig-15's quite rich service history. The front art is repeated on the front and the back, and the same thing here. And just here we've got a little description of what you're actually getting, just in case you didn't quite realize it was a plastic model kit. Probably should mention nothing on the back. And now we'll open this one up. So it's just a standard box with the lid. And starting off, we'll have a little look at the instructions and then move on to the actual kit parts. We've got a very nice detail of the service history. So you can see they're discussing the engine, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a British design, the Rolls-Royce Nene, that's been reverse engineered, and some of the research from Luftwaffe jets. And yeah, so quite a nice history on the aircraft there. You can have a little look, it goes a bit deeper than I did. And then we'll have a look at here. So we've got a nice little sprue map here. And obviously this is a booklet, which I prefer booklets to the wide kind of opening up blueprint style, because it's easier to have on the workspace. Here you've got your color code, so it comes with aqueous, Mr. Color, mission models, so and then Mr. Color, some other ones there. I'm not too familiar with these brands, but I'm sure you'll be able to find a substitute if you're using the AK, Vallejo and Tamiya over those. Then you start off with the cockpit, so a lot of photo etch details on the frame, and I believe these photo etch details are also pre-colored, so you don't have to worry about painting them. So you'll just paint the side walls, which makes life a lot easier, and you'll get a lot more fine detail out of this kit. So photo etching in this case can be really quite an advantage. And then you put the seat in place, photo etch seat belts, always a nice touch. And then you attach the bulkheads and the underside of the cockpit with the seat and the control column. Put in your rudder pedals, which photo etched, again some very nice details. And that looks like some of the wheel well assembly. So quite nicely laid out, I reckon. It's easy to follow what's going on. It's not too crowded and messy. Yeah, and it's got the paint markings there, and not too many advanced things to do really, just sticking some stuff together, and hopefully you're very good at photo etch, because there's a fair bit included. You've got options to do your cockpit. You've got photo etching, which is also really nice and saves a lot of time. We've got a helpful reminder there with a little evil looking bunny rabbit to put enough weight in the front of the aircraft, because otherwise it will tip back on its tail. Then you obviously join the fuselage halves. You've got a nice little bit of engine exhaust detail there, and you've got the rudder, which looks like you can pose it, which is always a nice little feature. The wings, relatively simple construction by the looks of things. You're just putting those together and sticking them onto the fuselage. And then moving on to the front of the air intake. Then you're just attaching your landing gear, some of those ridiculously big cannons on the front there, some extra parts there. I'm not sure what that symbol means, but you can probably have a check. That one's Eduard masks, so these must be clear parts, so that's nice that they're showing you how to do all of that. And then you've got some different options for the landing gear for different models, putting that together, a little bit of photo etching on the main gear, but most of that was obviously dedicated to the cockpit. Adding some of the flaps in place for the landing gear covers, and then you have a nice looking MiG there so far. Then it looks like just the cockpit pieces, so that's all quite nice and simply laid out, and it looks like there's some good details. Then you've got a little guide here for your masking, which is very handy. Optional fuel tanks there, so you've got some more P-51 looking drop tanks, and then you've got these ones with the fins. So that's quite nice. And then each decal scheme has an individual page showing the colors, which is very nice, clear and easy to follow. And it's also got some very nice history here about not only the unit and the aircraft itself, but also the pilot. So that's really nice to get that extra story element into your build. I think it always makes it a bit more special when you start to realize how these are all based on real people and real crews and real aircraft. I think that's very wonderful that Eduard have done this. You got some more details about this scheme. So these are some special schemes from a group of MiGs doing a special celebration scheme, which is very interesting. So it's good to see some variety. And like I said, all that history showing up too. So this is interesting. During the overhaul, the aircraft had upgraded wing installed features. The landing light located on the left wheel well. The light was later covered with a sheet of aluminium. So some very, obviously Eduard goes into a lot of detail here with the variations on the aircraft. So that's very interesting there. And the last scheme there, oh, I spoke too soon, there's another one here. So this is the Russian aircraft that was originally in the North Korean service and was painted over. So very interesting that they go into that detail, and very nice to have included so much variety and history. And now you move on to your common stencils, so they're all really clearly located, so it's a lot easier for you to figure out where they all go. So that's some brilliant details. And we've got others here, so this is marking E only, marking B, so it goes into specific common stencils for the specific aircraft schemes, which is fantastic. A lot of super detailers will go crazy for this kit for sure. So those are all very nice, and these are very good. These are a very good set of instructions. So we'll move on to the actual model kit. So starting off, we'll have a little look at the plastic sprues here. So the MiG is a pretty simple aircraft in terms of its construction, so you're not going to be seeing too much fancy stuff here, but you can see some very nice details in terms of the riveting and the panel lines just here, and some very nice clear parts, including your gun sight and all of that, so that looks very nice. Moving on to the next set of sprues, so you've got some of the landing gear options, a few of the armament options, but I think these aren't actually for the model kit that are included. They're spares for another kit, and all of the extra fine details. So as you can see, some really nice recessed paneling, all of the little rivet details are done very nice, and you got some very nicely done fine details there, including on the landing gear and part of the exhaust and the rear of the engine. And here's your cockpit sidewalls, so they're nicely detailed as well. Very clean molding, there's very little flashing on these sprues, so it looks like quite a precisely engineered piece of kit. And yeah, as I've seen a Mig-15 in real life, and this all looks really quite accurate for how it is in terms of the riveting details and the actual depth of the panel lines. So that is brilliant to see. They've done it quite realistically there. So I don't think it'll be very clear on the camera here, but these are your masks, and you can kind of see the outline for the different paint schemes. You've got some masking for the blue arrows, and you've got the masking for the canopy frame. So that's all quite brilliant stuff, especially if you're an airbrush painter. I'm more of a hand painter myself with the brushes, but definitely great for either of them though. And these are the really beautiful photo etching by Eduard. Some very, very wonderful detail in there for all of the cockpit instruments, and some very good depth as well. So that'll also save a lot of time for a lot of people if you don't have to hand paint all of the individual dials and switches and all of that. So that's wonderful extra inclusion and adds that extra little bit of detail in Eduard's kits. And finally, you've got the huge decal sheet, especially for an aircraft of this size. So you've got all the different markings. They're a little bit dull because they're obviously behind a piece of protection paper. You've got the optional markings for the cockpit if you're going to use decals for that. And then you've got all these other markings. So they're all quite wonderful there. And then you've got on the back here the common stencils. So there's a lot there. But that gets you a lot of really wonderful fine detail. So brilliant work, and I think there's 2 sets because one's in Russian and the other's in Czech, so for the different schemes. So that's very nice they've included that, and that adds a very very impressive level of detail there. So having a little look, you can see this is clearly a very wonderful and detailed kit. Hopefully it builds just as well as it looks, which I'm pretty sure it will, judging by the way it's all designed. So yeah, again, fantastic on those details, and the precision on this kit looks very excellent. Very easy to build, in fact, by the looks of things, given all that photo etching saves a lot of time, and it gives you the opportunity to produce a very realistic looking aircraft. So a lot of super details. Should be very happy to have this Mig-15 available. Probably wouldn't recommend it for beginners, as although it's a little bit easier not having to paint all of those extra parts, you've got to fiddle around with photo etch, which can be a little bit tricky if you're new to this experience and or new to modeling and you don't quite know how to handle it. I'm not sure if I'll be building this one. I've been very tempted to have a little go at it, but at the moment the workbench is a little bit busy. However, I have seen that they offer a 2-seat version of the Mig-15, like the one I've worked on at the Air Museum, with the tyres and giving it a clean, so I might be quite tempted to have a go at that one in the future. So, that's it for now, but thank you very much for having a watch of this video, and if you enjoyed it, please be sure to leave a like, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below in the comments section. And a special shout out to wonderful patrons, Archie Palmer, Emo, J&K Jones, and Joe Moss for helping me fund my videos. And speaking of fund, this video was also sponsored by TechtonicHobbies, if you couldn't tell from the shirt and the fact that I'm currently sitting in the TechtonicHobbies store down on 447 Wisest Road, Maroochydore, where this kit is available. We can order in other Eduard kits if you want, and quite a large variety of stuff. We're a little bit limited what we have in stock at the moment due to the size of the place. However, if you come up to the front and ask for a particular model, we'll do our best to order one in for you. And as I said, the Eduard kits are available, including the Mig-15, and I believe we've also got the Mig-21 professional pack in 1/72nd scale. So yeah, if you fancy having a go at these wonderful kits, which I certainly recommend, then come on down and have a look. And that's it for now, and until the next one, model on.